Today we're going to talk about US debt crisis. We want to talk about almost $38 trillion US debt that is piling up faster than ever. In order to understand why the US have such a large debt, we need to understand how the US fund itself. The US fund itself through issuing treasury bonds. These treasury bonds are IOU documents that individuals, organizations, banks, institutions, foreign governments, and US domestic institution banks an individual could purchase those IOUs in order to lend money to the US government. So if we want to put it very simply, is like people all around the world and companies, corporations, governments, they all work hard and gain certain amount of money, and they collect all those money and lend it to the US in order to function and work. Why the US needs to lend money in order to function? Because US run persistent budget deficit and trade deficit. It means the expenses of the US federal government is larger than its income from taxes. And trade deficit means the US import more than export. So both there is budget deficit and trade deficit. So in order to pay for these two areas, budget deficit, and trade, it needs to issue bonds. I need to ask for people all around the world, everyone except US government, could be people inside US government, the institution banks inside US, or people outside US, or institution, banks, organization, government outside. So anyone in the world except the US government could lend money to US government to function. So this $38 trillion is the accumulation of all these years of borrowing money from everyone. Why is becoming issue more and more recently? This debt, like any other debt, could be manageable and could not be an issue. Imagine an individual is buying a home or buying a car and asking for a loan, and the monthly payment for that loan is rational, is aligned with that person's income, and this person could manage to pay that loan in 10-20 years. Because when that person look at the interest, the amount of loan is manageable. Why $38 trillion is not manageable anymore? The reason is that the last only one decade, the piling of debt is accelerating to a degree that the interest on the existing loan is surpassing something like healthcare, the whole healthcare budget. So this debt, the interest on debt, is becoming so large that is even surpassing very important part of economy. So how this interest on existing debt could be paid? Again, it needs to be based on issuing bond and asking from everyone in the world to lend money to US government. So is like you ask money to pay for interest of loan, and then again you ask money for new loan to fund those budget deficit and trade deficit. Two times the US government need to borrow money in order to function and fund. So because it gets to this point, many countries, institutions, banks, and individual thinking that this might not be sustainable, and the US never might be able to pay its debt. That's why they asking for higher yield. For example, one reason that 10-year yield is high, is like 4.5% for a long time, is the demand is lower for the treasury bonds, and they need to keep the yield higher in order to attract demand, in order for people to be motivated to borrow money to the US government. And there are few issues arising that are new, and it could challenge this debt crisis. Historically, in modern terms, in the last few decades, after World War II and the creation of United Nations and creation of nation state, and then we had Bretton Woods and all those time, we had a situation in the world that most countries were not even existed in that time. So up until 1965, many countries that we know today were not even existed, because those countries were colonized and was under control of another power. So we had a situation that out of 193 countries that are recognized by UN today, many countries were not existed. And out of those countries that were existed because of historical realities, because of many factors that I cannot go into in this video, those countries had a hard time and left behind of industrial revolution. So those countries had a very hard time and started from a very low part of economic ladder to start their work to come up and become better and better in their economy and finance. So all those years that this process happened, many countries became independent, and many countries that were independent start to having more and more resources, but still started from very low point. The US could fund its government, it could fund through treasury bond, because there was very low competition. meaning there were no other country or competitor that also asking for bond, asking for borrowing money with certain yield. But now we have a situation that there are more and more countries offer the same yield and even higher. So this same yield and even higher is gonna drive a very certain money away from the US. So those money cannot be funding the US government, so it's gonna fund other government around the world. Another issue is before, when the dollar that was supposed to fund the US government and part of it go out to the world to be used for trade, before many of these dollars would eventually come back to the US in form of different investment like treasury bond investment. So although this money leave the US, other countries have no option. They bring it back, invested in the US treasury bond. But now, because there are more investment opportunities, many of those dollars, instead of coming back and be invested in US treasury bond, for example, go to underdeveloped country and get invested in projects. So again, there are shortage of demand for this treasury bond. That's why you have situation now that many people would rather to invest in gold than investing in US treasury bond because of geopolitical risk. So we have geopolitical risk, we have other investment opportunities all around the world that the money could be invested there, not coming back to the US, and also the competition in offering bond in other companies and countries with higher yield that also drive away those investment away from US. So because of these dynamics and because of the ballooning of debt in the US, the combination of these two factors created a situation that people call it US debt crisis.